One of the characters that really moved me in Legend of the Galactic Heroes is the radical Jessica Edwards, a teacher with a bright mind. Her story is one that is emotional, tragic, yet inspiring. Her radicalization turned her into the embodiment of resistance for the people of the Free Planets Alliance, as she nearly takes power. At the same time, she struggled through a love triangle with Yang Wenli and Jean Robert Lapp. For convenience, I'll mention that I'm going to base this off from the OVA series' plot. The three would meet in a dance hall. Yang makes the first move and is unable to do well since he, a terrible dancer, cannot stop accidentally stepping on her feet. Lab sees this as his opportunity to take over, showing Yang how it is done. But Jessica, she saw charm in Yang and was only playing hard to get. She would tell Yang later that she had hoped he'd come back to ask her to dance once more, and that she would have said yes. Never mind, Lab. As the Battle of Astate grew near, Lab felt it was time for him to step forward and ask the great question of asking Jessica for marriage. But he felt conflicted as he knows Yang has been a part of this love triangle. He asks Yang if it's alright, and Yang tells him to go ahead and that Jessica will say yes. Yang becomes a reactionary puppet master against his own love interest. Yang always seemed so supportive of this regardless, but at times he felt a certain sadness when looking at Jessica and Lap after the fact. Even Julian would come to notice this. As they walk in the airport, Jessica can't help but notice Yang first and waves at them. Lab goes and asks her to marry him. You can see there is clearly some conflicted emotions on Jessica's face. She looks over at Yang, who nods in approval. She says yes, and Lab spins her in celebration and gives Yang the thumbs up. They then decide to go celebrate, and you can see once again something is wrong. Jessica pours Yang a glass of wine, and you can see it on Yang's face that something is wrong. He looks bored even. Jessica then gives Yang a long stare before asking Lap if she can dance with Yang again. Lap approves, and the two go at it on the dance floor. And once again, the accidental footstepping happens, and Jessica laughs. But as cheery as she tried to look up to that point on that night, she couldn't help but start crying, and she buries her face in Yang's chest. Yang turns and sees that Lap has drank too much and passed out. He stands there and hugs Jessica. Surely he thought he did the right thing by supporting this, but it doesn't look as if that was the best way. Yang will later help Jessica and a very intoxicated Lap get into a taxi, before going back into the bar and getting very drunk himself. In the morning, Julian once again picks up that Yang is acting strange by drinking so much while out, and senses a bit of desperation in Yang at this point. Going off to battle, Jessica and Julian go to say bye to Yang and Lap. As Jessica and Lap talk, Yang looks seriously with a side eye. As Jessica goes in for the kiss, she stops right before and looks at Yang, who nods in approval and looks away. Julian notices at that point that Yang looks down with a frown as the other two kiss. As the battle would turn out, Lap dies because of the fault of his incompetent superior. Yang will go visit his grave and see Jessica all in black as she wonders what his death was for. It was at this point that a fierce fire began burning in Jessica. Later, as Chunit was giving a speech for all those who died in the battle, Jessica steps down the carpet with fiery eyes towards Chunit himself, and prepares to begin a struggle against the war and corruption of the Free Planets Alliance. Having had enough, she gives him the famous "Where were you?" line. Chunit, a warmonger, has been living luxuriously and safely far behind the sidelines as he sends soldiers to their deaths. He even has the ability to protect his own family from being drafted, while at the same time telling the people to offer their lives for the war. She points out this contradiction and tells him to practice what he preaches, now that it has come to her having to have sacrificed Lap for him. Slightly outraged but putting on a facade since he is in public, Chunit has Jessica taken out the building. Now she is a marked woman for death. Chunit's minions, the patriotic Ninth Corps, confront her outside and prepare to beat her. Fortunately for her, Dusty and Yang manage to pass by in a car and take her to safety. But they will be followed, and eventually they would attack Yang's house. As a result, Yang will go to tell Chunit to leave her alone. Jessica looks sad later as she took off to start over and leaves Yang behind. Eventually, Yang would go to see her, but is never able to bring himself to say that he did it to visit her personally. Once there, Yang saved a member of her organization. This led to problems where Yang and Jessica would meet one more time while caught up in the chaos. Jessica led the two to a tree, and they talk one last time about the past. This ties into what I was saying earlier, where Yang tells her he never learned how to dance, and Jessica says she was playing hard to get and was waiting for him to ask her for a dance again. She starts to push Yang a bit about him not making a move to pursue her, and he makes a joke about it. They laugh, but Jessica cries and goes to hug Yang for comfort. In the moment, they both look deeply at each other and begin to move in for the kiss, but get interrupted by a terrorist attack on Jessica's organization's building. Among the destruction, Jessica leaves. It turned out the candidate for her group was assassinated during the explosion. Infuriated, she decides to replace him as candidate and goes on struggling for her anti-war campaign. This culminates to the famous stadium scene. Jessica has won over the majority of the vote and holds a massive anti-war rally there. Their stance is one of pacifism, and they go on as the Free Planets Alliance's coup changes the rulers from one violent mob of leaders to another. As tension builds up, one of the men leading the National Salvation Military Council goes into the stadium and defies his order to be peaceful by challenging the pacifists. He smugly goes in and starts beating and threatening people to prove his theory that pacifism is weak and cannot win anything against an opponent with weapons. As seen clearly in history, a side that decides to be pacifist only gets crushed and destroyed. In fact, it will be towards the best interest of a violent enemy for its opponent to be pacifist. A pacifist stands no chance against an enemy who is a sadist or that has no morals or conscience. However, Jessica, at the height of her radicalization, tells this man that this coup is nothing more than another violent order, just like Rudolph's, and that he has no moral authority to say anything in regards of pretending as if they saved the Free Planets Alliance and brought a better government, and she tells him to get out. Outraged, the man smashes Jessica's face in with a pistol by slamming her head several times and cracks her skull as she screams and falls. Her dreams were shattered as her people snapped and rebelled against the coup. Outraged with her slaughter, and in one of the most intense scenes in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the people start fighting and killing the soldiers. They light up Molotov cocktails and even start beating up and stealing the soldiers' weapons. It gets worse as the army starts massacring the people, thousands of people. As fires start everywhere, the people overwhelm the soldiers as they attempt to flee. The violence only escalates. The leadership of the coup is informed and realize that they are finished. They will not only lose to Yang Wenli's faction, but also lose the people with the savagery they inflicted upon Jessica. Thus ends Jessica Edwards' life at such a young age as she burns down with the stadium. Yang Wenli would eventually learn of her death and stay completely quiet and depressed for a long while. I really enjoyed her fiery passion for a just revolution and would have loved to see her live longer. She showed no fear of the enemy and ultimately paid with her life for what she believed in, and that is the legend of Jessica Edwards. Thank you for listening.